first of all, thank you so much, Matt, and everyone else on the Stronger Network team for having me. It's a massive pleasure and a privilege to be asked to speak to you guys and share a bit of my journey and talk about communication and personal branding. Um, I very much want to start this session as a learner as well because I've been watching some of the streams, and they're really incredible. And I love the idea of everyone coming together really to elevate the church and put it at the forefront of our culture and society, really. So, yes. And at the same time, we're all on the journey. We're here to feed our minds, our spirits, and inspiration feeds our hearts as well. And that's very much a big part of my talk. And so I'm going to all bring personal branding and how that ties into my business as well. So I hope that you will all enjoy it. I can't encourage you enough to ask questions. So if you would like to ask questions or anything, just let me know. Um, I thrive on Q&As. So and I love the back and forth of it. So if you have any questions, please feel free to go in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on it as well. Get your notebooks out, and yeah, I come from a Pentecostal church background, so if there's something that you really agree with, I want to see you standing up, amen, on the chat or wherever else. And at the same time, thank you all for trusting me with your time and attention. It really, really is a privilege. So a little bit. So I was born in Portugal, and then traveled to Sweden and Europe, all over the place with my parents. They used to be missionaries. So they used to help gypsy communities and hand in Bibles and clothes wherever they could. So I grew up traveling a lot. Eventually, we settled in the UK, and I went to university to study graphic design. And it was there that my um, love for creativity sort of was ignited, really. And I started taking photos for my own graphic design work, and I realized that I really, really enjoyed it. So I started photographing weddings after a friend asked me if I would like to photograph her wedding. And all I had in my portfolio was very much street photography and that sort of thing. But she trusted me enough to capture that, and that was great. I absolutely loved it. So the next thing I did was very much to start knocking on people's doors at church, couples that I knew that um, were getting married, and and I just simply approached them saying, "Hey, I would love to capture your wedding. Here's my portfolio of one wedding." And slowly, my personal brand and the business grew up that way. Eventually, things started snowballing. I started getting a lot of awards, and in some ways, we are here today. And I find myself very, very fortunate to travel for work. I'm very much of a destination photographer. That's my sort of niche. And yeah, I consider myself having one of the best jobs in the world. At the same time, um, I wouldn't be able to do this job without the support of my wife, Zion. Um, to get to the stage that I am at today, it took me a good 5 years of building my brand and business, working full time at another job with MasterCard, and on the side, very much working on wedding photography. Um, I would have a full time job and shoot 30 weddings a year, um, endless nights of working hard. And I think that for anyone that's thinking of venturing out into building a personal brand, building a business, and elevating that, usually it starts with you having something on the side. If you're able to literally start it up with not having a job or anything like that, perfect, go for it. But for me, it took a lot of constant communication of how the business was going with what my dreams were with my wife, what my goals were. When they're being smashed, we would celebrate them together. When something went wrong within the business, we would obviously look at that together and communicate that to us, just so she would actually be in that journey. So anyone that has partners, husband and wives teams, that you have a dream of what sorts, and you really really want to push that, make sure that you take your partner alongside with you, because it's crucial really for you both to be on board with that really. And wedding photography for me is very much a lifestyle. It's hard work, and one of the things that I really really want to do, um, within this talk, it's very much show how personal branding can work, um, within me, and in some ways this presentation in itself, it's almost like a one-on-one on branding. So I'm just going to play, this little video of me and my family. And this is one of the first things that, if a client or someone that is interested in my photography would see through my brochure, and it just gives them a little bit of an idea of my character. I would say I'm quite an introvert, but at the same time, I love the, how could you say, I love the dynamic that you get with talking to people, and back and forth. It really, really feeds me. So I'm going to play this just to give you a good idea of how to present yourself, and put yourself in the right foot of the door when you're talking to or introducing yourselves to clients. So hopefully this will work. I'm going to pause it there because I'm not entirely sure whether you can see it sort of tends to be lagging a little bit on my side. So if it's lagging on my side, I reckon it'll be lagging on your side. So what I reckon I'll afterwards is perhaps post it, and you get a better idea. But the main idea of the video is to introduce me, introduce my family, and see us in a totally different setting. In this case, it's Marrakesh. And being a destination wedding photographer, you very much want to portray the idea that you travel a lot, and that's very much what we do. Literally within, and that's my daughter Ava, and literally within 4 months of her being born, we were traveling to Hong Kong. So let me just get back to the slides. Perfect. And hopefully you'll be able to see that. The other thing I really, really wanted to show you, and hopefully this will work a lot better because the other video was a lot bigger, whereas this is a lot lighter, and hopefully the bandwidth will cope with it. But it's a video very much on my work. It will give you a good idea, again, when clients get in touch and everything else, they would get this. And the main idea is very much to put yourself at the forefront of of your first contact with people that are interested in what you do. So let's have a look.
To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better, so let's stay together. To make me feel better.
So that's enough of me. I can see people are starting to get engaged in the chat. So come on in and feel free to ask questions later on. So just let me know if you have any questions and we can dive into them at the end as well. So here we go. Inspiration is a very big part of my work. And I love to draw it from so many different spaces. But I very much find that us as Christians, us as the church, should be very much at the forefront of all things creative. So if you, especially for this presentation, which is quite visual, it's very much geared towards designers, architects, and whoever else that find themselves dreaming about visual things. But I find myself being fortunate to be part of a very vibrant church in Peterborough called Kingsgate Community Church. And I love the fact that we are able to, it's very much its mission and its core to inspire and build other churches. But at the same time, its core mission is very much to transform lives by the power of God's love. So I find that I love the conversation on personal branding. But at the same time, I know that um, as Christians and perhaps within the church, personal branding can be very much seen as almost the opposite of what we as a church want to do, because personal branding is very much about the me, the self in some ways. And church it can be quite individualistic, whereas the church is about others. It's about building, growing together. And hopefully, with this talk, I'll be able to redeem some of those ideas, really, because I find that in everything that we do, God is very much in it. So, me being within this industry, I find myself meeting all sorts of florists, DJs, um, all sorts of caterers, all sorts of people, and it's those day-to-day interactions that really make a difference. So here we go. In terms of inspiration, I find that um, it is very much our responsibility to see it and chase it and execute it well. No matter what you do, no matter even if you find yourself trying to create, even during these COVID times, create a business of creating face masks. Inspire yourself by others and the things around you and the things that you love in order to create those um, those face masks or whatever else that you find yourself doing. For me, inspiration, I like to take it from many different industries, whether it's fashion, whether it's architecture, whether it's plants. I absolutely love plants. I'm a sucker. You can see it here in the office, and if you went to our house as well, you'd see it literally. Our lounge is full of them, really. So try to take inspiration from different things within your industry or whatever you're doing, and try to bring it into your thing that you're doing, because the result is that by doing that you will very much differentiate yourself, and the result is that your eye will start to wander towards the beautiful things that are around the world, and you'll be able to portray that within your own thing. um, so in this case, for me, Instagram is a massive source, and I love to take Polaroid pictures, for example. And I will talk about that later on. But it just shows that you are able to really draw inspiration from it in a really easy way, sort of like Pinterest. But I'm constantly saving things here and there, almost like a little scrapbook of visual goodness in some ways. And I'm very much an avid believer that um, as Christians as well, we should be consuming things that are good for our hearts, good for our minds. And in some ways, no mediocrity is allowed. Try to surround yourself with things that really would elevate whatever you're doing, and bring forth something of God, really. Um, Other things that inspire me are, for example, magazines, arts, YouTubers, music, photographers as well, of course. But again, very much to hone in that idea that you should be taking inspiration from things outside your industry. For example, um, YouTubers for me, Casey Neistat and Sam Calder are incredible. Casey Neistat, for example, he has this great ability of tell a story with moving images, and that's something that I would love my work to have. And and you, in this case, when you are thinking of whatever product you or brand you would like to present to your audience, really be able we should be able to tell a story and tell a really good story about what we are trying to communicate. So Casey Neistat is incredible of that for me. Sam Calder, he he has this incredible beauty and an incredible way of capturing the world in a stunning and beautiful way. God's creation, and it blows my mind so many times, and that very much makes me want to travel and see the world for its beauty even more. And obviously, you got music and everything else, but with all of this, and in some ways, going back to the YouTube thing, I find it that today it's very much it should be very much at the forefront of us trying to build our brand and communicating it, that we should be very much documenting everything that we're doing in the process and trying to present that to our audience, because they will be interested in the nitty gritty. They will be interested on how you make that specific face mask, on your thought process and everything else. So do not be afraid of getting your face in front of the camera and and trying to push those things forward. So in some way, how can you bring a, a different approach to your personal brand, to the sea of sameness that is out there? And I find that, me personally, it's very much through personal projects, personal projects where I'm able to um, do be creative, but at the same time, not necessarily have the pressure of having a paid client that I need to deliver something. It's something that I'm doing just for fun. And in this case, for me, is it was this project around Polaroids. I started capturing them around my surroundings and everything else, and slowly, that started leading into my actual work. And again, that's very much influenced from Andy Warhol, which was on one of the first slides, and Basquiat as well, from the late 80s and 70s as well. And I absolutely love the effect that you get of Polaroids and the tangibleness of it. And in some ways, to hone it in even more, um, I find that um, a good brand shows what it really cares about and what it loves, and you will see that um, your brand will become a lot more engaging and personal with your audience if you're able to show that. So, for example, within my Instagram, I find myself sharing quite a lot about my family and everything else, and that's very much to engage an audience that wants to build a family, is interested in that. I like to show a lot of travel and things that um, are inspiring me, because I want to attract an audience that very much loves to travel and wants to see that sort of thing, because that's very much at the forefront of my work. And I find that by putting all those things out, your vibe very much attracts your tribe. And in some ways, I've got people that I've surrounded myself within, um, within the industry and within my church and a life group and everything else. People that are able to speak positivity, people that are able to bring a sense of accountability. And hey, Igor, how are you doing today in terms of that project that you wanted to do? Talk to them about your dreams and everything else, and allow people to make you accountable, because those are the people that will very much elevate you and encourage you. So, for example, for me, especially over the last few months, it's been quite hard to be motivated with COVID and everything else. And our industry, the wedding industry, um, has in some ways been very much decimated in terms of um, weddings and everything else. So it's good to have people that you find yourself being encouraged. For me, in that case, it's Sandoka. He is incredible. He is another photographer, and he's very strong at business. And I love getting chats with Sam, and just it lifts my spirits every time I leave a call with him. So very much try to find people like that. Pablo, I love his work, and it's beautiful, and the artistry of it really encourages me to do better at my own work. Marcus, he's the guy that's quite critical whenever I'm doing something, a new project. I would be able to send him something. Hey, what do you think of this? And Sarafin, he's got a, a, a work ethic that's second to none, and I absolutely love that. So the main point here is very much that have people that you're surrounded with that will be able to elevate and push your brand forward. Um, and as daunting as it may be as well, um, network. Um, Talk to people around your industry and everyone else's um, industries that are sort of like together with you. Network within those circles as much as you can. So, for example, there's this new app called Clubhouse, which it's been quite a lot in the news and everything else. So I was quite intrigued to see what it was. And it's very much this app that brings communities together, and you can only communicate through voice. And I found being able to communicate with other photographers and other industry leaders, and especially during these times of COVID, where you sort of have to pivot a bit. I do quite a lot of education anyway, but I had to step it up even further during COVID times. And being within that app, as daunting as it may be, um, because it's literally almost like a stage, and you put yourself up to speak, and people will ask you questions and whatever else, and it can be very daunting when you don't know the person on the other side. But at the same time, the things that you'll get out from it will be incredible in terms of the people that you meet and the opportunities that you'll get from it. So network is the main point, really. So let's go on a bit of branding, really. I find it that, um, especially being a visual guy, I like um, my branding to really tell you um, what my work is about in a very quick few words, because um, it's true, but audiences these days don't have the attention span to really sit at a site or on Instagram or social media, or even sometimes through conversation. Um, People's attention span these days can be very, very poor. So um, you, with the way you communicate, in this case with me, the way I communicate visually, but the way you communicate even verbally or whatever else, it has to be punchy. It has to um, in some ways be quite um, catching and grabbing in order to get people's attention fairly quick and retain that attention at the same time. So when you go to my site, for example, um, you'll understand very, very quickly what I am about. You'll understand that I love to travel. You'll understand that um, my work is very geared towards fashion and adventure. Um, but at the same time, I love to capture intimate moments in a beautiful way, and I love my images to tell a story. It's a very much um, an important thing for brand to be able to tell a story from beginning to end in some ways of what you're trying to convey, and at the same time, to put my foot at the door. I have a few accolades that I put at the forefront of the website. So that in some ways gives you a bit of authority. And even if you don't have those, demonstrate that to 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 your audience that you are willing to network and chat to people and get out there in order to build your brand and the authority of it. And yeah, in some ways, a quote that I really, really love is that a good brand says much more about what it isn't than what it is. And it's having that ability of um, building your brand to the point that people will know what to expect from your brand. Um, I guess an example would be Joe Wicks, for example. He built his brand within the fitness world in a beautiful way, and it loves to encourage everyone to become fit and healthier. So if Joe Wicks suddenly started talking about, I don't know, astrophysics and whatever else, you just wouldn't expect it, because that's not on par with his brand. But at the same time, he loves to talk about his family, because um, it's very much on part of his brand to build healthy eating for the whole of the family, for their kids as well. So be able to Bring those passions into your brand, and don't be afraid of doing that, because for example, for me, I love music, and I'm part of the worship team at my local church, and I bring that within my work constantly. So if you go to my site and if you go to a story, you'll see a piece of music that goes with the story as well, just to tell, or just to emphasize it a little bit more. So try to bring those different little things that you love about your brand, what you're trying to build, your thing, and try to bring those different elements to it. And what you'll see is that by adding different things here and there, I love this, I love that, and adding those different things, all of that will connect and create your own brand, your own um, you really, and being able to reflect that, um, it's really 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 important. Um, so for me, in some ways, I find that fashion, art, and travel are very much at the core of my business and my brand. And within there, in the circle, a client or an audience that loves the three of them, that would sort of like be my ideal person to team up with and do something with. So try to identify the things that you love about your work, and yeah, you'll see your work and your branding um, grow and increase in that way really. Um, I wanted to fire a few quick tips on how to build your brand and everything else. So um, I find it a very good brand, especially like we said previously, um, these days where audiences have poor attention spans, a good brand is able to capture you. It's able to entertain, inform, inspire, and educate. You don't need to do all of those things, of course not, but try to find something within your brand that perhaps educates or informs your audience about something very specific about what you do, or what you love, or in this case, trying to entertain. If you find yourself that you've got a very good sense of humor, or a good pulse on the culture and everything that's going around you, try to entertain your audience with whatever you have available, with IGTV stories and series. That the world is your oyster. It truly is. Me personally, my characters were not very much like that, but slowly, I'm learning to do it more and more, and showing my face online as well, because that would be the next tip. Show up. When you start a business project, the hardest thing is truly to start. Um, Fear comes, and we're not entirely sure of how we should approach things and everything else. But I find that God has given us gifts in order to really portray those gifts, and put them in some ways on show, really on display for the world to see, and attract them, and obviously in that case be able to inform something of God within that. And I find that Second Timothy 1:7 very much hits the nail on the head in terms of that. For God did not give us a spirit of timidity or cowardice or fear, but he has given us a spirit of power and love and of sound judgment and personal discipline, abilities that result in a well balanced mind and self control. Um, so show up to the things that um, you might be afraid of, because I find it that, especially with my branding and journey in terms of business, it took a good long few years in order to establish a good solid brand that it's known out there, it's known for its accolades and everything else. It takes time, but I find it that the best things in life are very much on the other side of fear. So do try to grow out of those sort of fearful moments of showing your face online, or showing your brand or what you're doing. The other tip would be to build something that's personal to you. Um, I find that when we're trying to build that personal brand, um, it's hard work. It's hard work, and if you want to keep that momentum, it's quite hard to do it when you are not necessarily passionate about those things. So, very much try to find something that you gravitate towards. Let's say you are someone that works within finance, and that's your full-time job, but you absolutely love um, plants in some ways. So start an account on social media about it, and share your thoughts and what you love about it, and how to grow plants. And I find that I'm constantly letting them die, and I constantly have to find people that are really good at it. So invest in things that you absolutely love yourself, however sideways they might be in some ways. Um, Look for opportunities. Uh, like it or not, a lot of our identities today are increasingly mediated and dictated by our devices. So I find that using social media and whatever else that is within our oyster, really, try to get all of those things around you, and use those opportunities whenever they can. Usually, when I speak um, on big conferences, and it's always geared to photographers. And in some ways, I wanted this presentation to be visual. So when Matt got in touch, I very much thought, oh, I'm not sure whether I'm the best person to give to give a talk on personal branding and communication. But at the same time, I really want to go for it, take the opportunity to expand how I present myself, and just learn and grow. And you never know what those opportunities may bring to your brand. Um, I find that a good brand as well needs to learn how to write a good copy, or needs to write a good text, whether it's a good text within your website, Instagram, social media, whatever else. Practice that. So something that I've started growing in the habit of is writing every day. Writing, obviously, in my diary, and whatever prayers and whatever else. But at the same time, just sit down and try to write things on education, and within um, whatever is going on my mind, within the business, really. Um, Try to write as much as possible, because it's a skill that it's so sought after out there in the world, and people that are able to write and communicate what their brand is are the ones that very much find themselves at the forefront within the industry. So, for a good example is there's this amazing couple within Canada that are really good friends, called Sherry and Mike. And whenever you go to their social media, you'll find compelling captions, bodies of text that explain what they were feeling throughout the day whilst they were capturing either their family or wedding, whatever it may be. But being able to communicate that in a really clear and concise way. And then if you add an inspirational side to it, or an educational side to it, it is an amazing recipe to really propel your brand. Um, the other tip that I really wanted to convey, and it's one of the tips that I'm finding myself having to push forward a lot, really, and that's to say that today video is king in some ways, in the sense that it's truly important, um, especially during COVID times. If you want to have a brand that connects with your audience, you need to get online and show your face and get into video. Um, and and whenever you try to do those videos, try to remove distractions, and try to put yourself in the best light as possible, really, because that will very much increase your brand and your visibility. And it is important to communicate that clearly, and again, in an inspirational way. So very much a video and it's truly truly important. And I find it daunting myself, literally being in front of a video camera right now. It can be quite daunting, but it's truly truly important to build a brand that is communicating clearly and at the same time communicating concisely to what is around you. And the other tip that I had was very much understand your source. Understand that um, all things that we have come from God. So, and Romans 11:36 very much hits the nail on the head. For from him and through him and for him are all things. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen. And it's very easy to have the sort of passion to do something else. You might feeling like that your full-time job, whatever you're doing, it's not necessarily fulfilling the gifts that you feel God has given you. Um, Understand that God has given you those gifts for a reason, and use the opportunities and step out of that fear in order to do it. Understand that yes, God has given you those gifts for a reason, and I guess my main point is find those people that are the encouragers within your sphere to propel those gifts really. And obviously that comes through prayer and everything else, but um, really really invest in those gifts and don't let them be forgotten or perhaps lost at a point where perhaps years have passed and you realized on hindsight that you would really like to do something else. It's never too late in some ways. So yes, those are a few of the quick tips that I wanted to share. At the end of the day, at the same time, I wanted to let you know that this is, in some ways, from the great philosopher Drake and Rihanna. You got to work, work, work. It's hard. Um, it's and then sometimes I've seen people whilst they work hard, um, certain things have come easier to them, and I don't want to some ways discourage you to do something because it's hard work. No, but at the same time realize that it's not easy. It takes constant communication with your partners and the people around you. And whilst you're listening to this talk, you might be feeling inspired to conquer the world and the industry and whatever else. Um, Go for your goals and create something incredible that you are passionate about. But perhaps a few days later, after Stronger has finished, um, months have passed, and you find yourself creating excuses for whatever else. And I find that again, going back to the point of um, knowing where your source comes from, knowing where your gifts come from, um, us as Christians, us as the church, we should be very much at the forefront of using those gifts within the church, those gifts within the secular industry, wherever we can, because I find that it very much glorifies God when we do those things, and it's incredible to see people succeeding within the Christian world, but I would love to see more of it, really. So, yes, it's hard work, but it's really, really worth it at the same time. I think that's it for me on my side. I don't know if anyone has any questions or we could get the Q&A going. So when lockdown is over, fancy a meetup. I don't know many other Christians wedding photographers. Neither do I, to be fair. I know a few that literally I can count in my hands. So it's incredible to really find people that um, are not just simply within the industry, but are in the industry and have the same core values of faith as you. So yes, I would love that. And just do get online, send me a message, and we can organize something. If you are creative as well, I really, really encourage you to get into Clubhouse, that new app that I was talking about in the beginning, because you're able to really get in touch with other creatives and really and even if you and it's not just for creatives, it's for I find myself being in conversations about business, about marketers. You've got different rooms about so many different things. So do get involved. Sarah has a question. How much time a week do you put towards gaining inspiration? All the time I put into it trying to feed my creativity feels like opportunities lost. That's a great question. I find that um, it's happening on a constant basis. It's not just necessarily sitting down. Okay, now let's be inspired. Now let's be creative. I find that creativity doesn't work like that in so many ways, and very much like the Holy Spirit drops things here and there, time and time again. It's not constant, but setting time aside as well. Yes, it's good, but I find that if you do that, you're gonna find a system that really works for you. In that sense, it could be literally just scrolling through Instagram or Pinterest. But me personally, I find that works very much when I'm out and about. Put yourself into positions of being inspired. I find it that in some ways, some of my best ideas come when I'm in the shower, or sometimes when I quiet things down, go for a walk, and an inspiration comes. And at the same time, it's very much about surrounding yourself with people that feed that inspiration. So um, make sure that you have people around you, those homies or those gals that you are able to get connected with, and leave from a conversation with them feeling like you can breathe and fresh of breath air. So that's really really crucial. So do try to invest on those people. Yes. So I think I will close things up here. Feel free to get in touch afterwards. And once again, thank you so much for your time and your attention. It has been a pleasure to be here with you guys. So I hope you have a great rest of the day. See you guys. Thank you very much.